This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Devan Sood of Orca. Orca's motto is ditch your lease, live flexibly between LA, New York City, Tulum, and more. So basically building a competitor to Airbnb, and I'm looking forward to hear more about it. Dayvin, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Vance. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Where are you calling in from today?
Currently in Medellin, Colombia. Just got back from a little stint in San Francisco, then stayed in LA for a while. Now I'm here for 2 months, and looks like Lima, Peru will be next, but I'm all over the place.
Sweet. And are you building out projects in Medellin? Is that the purpose?
That's the idea, yeah. So we're going to launch both Medellin and Bogota, and then we might launch Cartagena as well. We're still looking into it. But we've got a lot of exciting upcoming launches.
Sick. Keeping active. I'd love to, at the start of the episode, I always try to kind of connect how different guests know each other. And so you know previous podcast guest, Caleb Worston, World House. It was episode number 84. So people remember the Caleb Worston episode. And you're kind of attacking a similar market, basically trying to provide alternatives to Airbnb. Pretty cool. We're trying to have lots of guests talking about different aspects of real estate and tech startups in Latin America. And so we're happy to have you here, David.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to be here. It's kind of coincidental that we know Caleb. Caleb and I went to college together, and we've connected a couple times since then. So it's good that keeping the community tight knit.
hmm So you went to Babson, which is a small business school, well known for entrepreneurship. And I read that you graduated in 2.5 years on a 4-year degree. How did you pull that off?
It is. I did pull it off somehow. So what happened was I got there a little bit late. I got there in January instead of the fall, and I took a year off in between, but I still graduated on time. So I was only on campus for 2.5 years. How I accomplished that was basically just overloading my schedule all the time, taking every summer class I possibly could. I even took an online class at one point just to fill up another extra credit. Um, I just didn't. I I wanted to be moving forward from it, and I also wanted to take time off to do my own thing. So I actually took a year off to pursue my own project. Didn't go well, so I ended up going back to Babson. But yeah, I finished in just under 3 years, and it was fine. It was good.
That's sick. I mean, every semester that you can shave off shaves off like 25 grand or more, right? So, it's like,
Yeah, actually, I joke about it with my dad about how spending so much money on college. He's a professor, so spending so much money on college per semester ends up being like an insane amount of money at the end of the day. And if you even save one semester's worth, that ends up being worth maybe months of personal runway.
mm. And you were like overloading instead of taking 5 classes, you were taking like 7 or something.
Yeah, instead of taking three or four, I think I was taking 4 or 5 at any given point, and that was definitely tough. I was also working while I was in college, so I was consulting for other companies, and I would try to make my schedule, you know, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so then I could work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But it ended up just being really tough. That's why I decided to get out of there earlier.
hmm You've always wanted to do entrepreneurship, right? And so that's kind of your trajectory is startups.
Yeah, I kind of got into entrepreneurship a little bit early, and it kind of was luck and wasn't luck at the same time. like I mentioned, my dad is a professor. He teaches at a business school. And so I've been attending his classes since, I was 11 or 12 years old. My mom is an entrepreneur of a owner of a small business, and I've been helping her with her small business since I was also like 11 or 12 years old. So I was exposed to business very early. I was always exposed to this sort of thing. I started my first company kind of accidentally. It ended up just being something cool that we made that ended up selling and turning into something a little bit bigger. It was a clothing company that I ended up running for about 3 years. And then I started another company after that, which ended up going decently well as well. That was a technology company. And that's what set me on the technology path. And I've just been building different consumer facing technology products ever since.
That's cool. And while you were in college, did you meet Caleb in person? Have you met him in person, or just kind of social
I'm
media and
sure
stuff?
we crossed paths. We had to have crossed paths at some point. I honestly don't have the biggest Babson network just because I wasn't there so super long. So I've got like 5 or 10 friends from Babson that I know really well, and that's basically it. Everybody else is like, oh, I've heard of them, or I've seen them on campus or something. But I just wasn't there long enough to like really soak in
Hmm.
all the network.
Randomly made me think, since your dad is a professor in university, did he push you to do the graduate in 2.5 years thing? Was he kind of like, yo, this is the game. Honors doesn't matter. Like, get through it as quick as possible. Like, I don't even know.
That's so funny you say that, actually. He was the exact opposite. So, the reason I did the whole 2.5 years thing is because him and I had an agreement that he really, like, he's a professor, his dad's a professor, long line of academics, Stanford PhD and all. So, like, very hardcore academia. He really, really wanted me to get a college degree, whether I liked it or not, or even finished fast or not. So my agreement with him was, okay, I'll go get this degree, but I get to do it on my terms. And he was like, okay, as long as you finish on time. You can do whatever you want as long as you finish on time. I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So, like I mentioned, I took a year off during my second and third year of Babson, kind of in between. And I, during that time, took an online course and had already previously overloaded my classes, knowing that if I had to go back to Babson, that I would still finish on time. That was the only way I could pull it off to go work on my own project and keep the parents happy. So at that time in life, that was the answer.
Nice. A lot of my buddies did the opposite. They did a fifth year. And so you did 2.5. A lot of my buddies did 5. Not
Honestly, I don't know if I'd recommend the way that I did it. It was a lot and a lot of very late nights, but it definitely helped me accelerate my professional career path. I'll say that.
good stuff. Good stuff. Probably a good time in the episode for you to just explain what is Orca, the project that you've been working on now. Give us the rocket pitch and explain what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So for your audience, I know that they'll understand it right away, but I want to, before I explain the actual product, explain kind of the vision and how we got to what the product is today. So it starts with a question. The question is, if our physical location is not attached to our income, what should our physical location be attached to? And this is kind of the premise for Orca, which is, if we're going to live, then it doesn't make sense to live in a 12-month lease if your location, you can be location agnostic, you can live anywhere in the world. It doesn't make sense to own a car if you're only going to be there for a month. That's why Uber exists. And it doesn't make sense to get a hotel if that's not the class you want. That's why Airbnb exists. And so the same way that Airbnb has optimized so heavily for vacations, we want to take a from scratch approach, thinking about what a housing platform would look like if it were optimized for the longer term rental. So right now, this would be you and I, the people that are going places for a month or 2 or 3 at a time, living in different locations, don't want a long-term lease, have the ability to work remotely. Basically, we're completely replacing the lease for you and I. We no longer have to have this long-term contract and figure out how to manage it. we can just live flexibly between wherever we want to be. That's the premise for what we are currently doing. I honestly think, though, that the experience of renting through Orca, just like the experience of renting through Airbnb, is so much better than the previous experience. And the previous experience for renting a 12-month lease is agents and finding a good building and moving and furnishing and utilities. The whole thing from start to end is just a terrible, terrible experience. And I think that the experience of renting through Orca is just such a better way to rent in general. So yes, for now, we're focusing on these people that really want to live flexibly. But I think eventually this becomes a platform where people can live their entire lives on Orca and just rent from us perpetually.
That's interesting. And what do you think it is about the offerings that are out there right now, Airbnb, booking.com, hotels.com, whatever,
Yeah,
that what are they not not understanding about the market?
yeah, great question. So let's use a platform like Airbnb, which tends to be the go-to for people like you or I. Airbnb is so optimized for vacation rentals, but you don't actually realize that until you do something other than a vacation rental. So, for example, one of the early things that really clicked for me and Orca was I was living on Airbnb. I had rented multiple months in Mexico on Airbnb. And at one point, I looked at my receipt and saw that I had paid like $450 in fees, just in fees. And I was like, what what did this platform do that was worth $450 over these 2 or 3 months or whatever it was? Just didn't make sense to me. So that's kind of when it got the ball started to roll in my head.
Mhm.
But let me just explain to you the kind of other ways that they optimize for vacations that might not be so obvious at first. We think about things that they've even recently released, like the ability to filter different types of houses. They have a filter
On
for the
Airbnb.
right, right.
Okay.
They have a filter for the OMG house, right? The OMG category.
What's
Um,
that, like the crazy stuff, like tree houses?
right. It's the house that's shaped like a giant potato, or like in a tree house, or
Okay,
is
okay,
made from an old boat or whatever.
okay.
The crazy stuff. Now, that might be really cool for a vacation for 2, 3 days, even a week or whatever, but it doesn't make any sense for a long term stay. For a long term stay, there's actually a totally different feature set. We don't want the OMG house, we want the OMG neighborhood. And the different ways of exploring those two different things are just so vastly different from each other. So there's all these people like you and me that are trying to stuff ourselves into the ability to use Airbnb and kind of make our own use case out of it. But everything from their business model, which takes a percentage charge off of our reservation, doesn't work for monthly rentals, all the way down to the fact that it's an open marketplace where anybody can rent their list their property. Doesn't make it optimal for a long term stay. When you have a long term stay, you want to have reliability. You want to make sure that the Wi-Fi is good. You want to make sure that it's actually in
Yep.
the place that it says it's in, that the
And so
utilities
you're
work.
kind of bridging the gap where your pitch is ditch the 12-month lease. So you're trying to provide people an alternative to a 12-month lease, and they can do cool stuff around the world and switch up locations. Or
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, like walk us through like some of the cool stuff you can do.
Yeah, so as an Orca member, you buy the Orca Pass, and it basically unlocks all of our top rated listings. So you get access to all of the best places in the world to live. And if we're not already in your destination, just let me know, and we will literally go launch in your destination for you. We're just so good at
And they're going to be
finding the
private
best
apartments that
places.
you're getting, or
That's right, we only do private apartments. There's
okay,
no co living at all.
okay,
So these are the fact that we've kind of created this network of the best places to live in the world for you as a consumer means that you can then pick up and go from wherever for however long. You can live between LA and New York and Paris and Dubai if you wanted to. And that can be a typical year where you don't have to do all of the have where you don't have to have all of the headaches of finding a place and doing the research and making sure that everything is going to be suitable. With Orca, you can always rely that we're going to have the best places and the best neighborhoods at the best prices. And we're not charging insane fees. We're not doing anything that isn't aligned with you as a long-term member.
Okay.
And then on
And so
top of
can I
that,
do 1 month,
yeah,
or I have to get a
yeah,
subscription for multiple months, or?
yeah, it's a good question. So the way the Orca Pass works is we have two different offerings. You can buy the annual Orca Pass, which unlocks everything for a year, or you can do the exact same thing, kind of dip your toe in with a quarterly pass. And so that quarterly pass basically allows you for 3 months to live within our network, just see what it's all about, see what the other benefits are that we also include, and see how you like it according to your standards.
Okay, so
And assuming that it works.
I pay the
Mhm.
fee for the Orca Pass, so like $100 a quarter
Yep.
for 3 months. Call it $30 a month, $40 a month, and this basically gives me access to a network of off-market Airbnbs around the world. Like, I'm looking at the website; they have different prices. So maybe Playa del Carmen's $1,500, maybe New York is $3,500. And so basically, kind of what I'm paying for is like access to the listings, and then I'm sure all this like concierge kind of stuff around it and community.
Right. That's exactly right. So think about if you're the current process today. It starts with understanding the city, which means you have to go do research about the different neighborhoods, understand where you even want to live. Then you have to kind of go search on Airbnb for that exact precise square mile of finding the right neighborhood and the right price and all that. And
Hmm.
then on Airbnb, if your rental is $2,000 a month, let's say, you're going to get charged $300 a month just in service fees for that single month. So the $100 Orca Pass, when we don't charge any fees, totally makes sense when you compare the two.
Oh, sick. So
Um,
there's no fees when I actually book something?
Correct. All the rental prices that you see are rental prices that we're getting and passing down to you. In fact, let's say the rental is actually $2,000 a month. We'll go to the property manager and say, hey, you guys are great property managers. We want you to focus on the property management, and we will do all the marketing for you and all the communications for you. So, for that, why don't you give us a small marketing discount? Let's say the rent
Hmm.
then decreases to $1,800. We'll take that $1,800 price point and actually pass it along to you. So you get an exclusive price you can only get through Orca using the
Hmm.
Orca Pass. Even if you were to go directly to the property manager, it would be more expensive because they have more tasks on their plate. So we are quite literally taking the technology and filling the gaps with all of the inefficiencies and making it really easy and reliable to rent all over the world.
I like the sound of it. I mean, Lord knows that Airbnb needs more competition.
Yeah, we've found that there's a lot of Airbnb customers that are metaphorically screaming for another option, and they are just dire. We've seen people sign up to be members without even having an idea of what they wanted to rent immediately. They just really want us to exist. They're like willing us into existence by becoming members because they want to see this offering so badly. So it's been really nice to see that the problems that I was solving for myself have now been solved for other people, and we're really helping a lot of people live around the world.
Hmm. And it looks like you guys recently launched on Product Hunt.
Yeah, totally blowing out expectations. We had an idea to launch. We decided to throw it up there and ended up coming in, breaking the top five in the world as far as product launches that day. So it was really exciting. Got a lot of amazing feedback, got a lot of members to sign up, and are excited about all of the feedback we're getting. I mean, if you go through the comments on our product hunts launch, it's as the founder,
Hmm.
thrilling to see so many people so overjoyed about what we're building.
Yeah, even Ryan Hoover, the founder of Product Hunt, responded and kind of
Yeah,
talked about his experience. People are more mobile today than ever, that kind of thing.
yeah, totally. I think that there's a certain number of early adopters, and obviously Ryan is like the prototypical early adopter founding Product Hunt. But there's a couple of these early adopters that really get it. And if you understand the space or you understand the problems, you really, really, really get it. I've even had a chance to talk to a number of Airbnb employees who just really, really get it, and that even is pretty exciting. Yeah, there's a couple other players in the space as well. Blue Ground, Landing, even Selena has a co-living product these
I was going to
days.
ask about that.
Yeah,
They just
yeah,
launched
and
it, right? Or I saw an email
yeah.
about it recently. It's what are they calling it?
So they've launched it for a little over a year and a half now. Actually, funny enough, I should try and put you in touch. Another one of our Babson friends is the product lead for CoLive for Selena. So
The
maybe
co-live.
there's another
So they've
interview.
had co-living. Yeah, that would actually be sick. That would be super sick.
Yeah,
What was I gonna say?
co-living.
So they've had co-living for a while, but I think even more recently they launched something else, like an additional pass thing. I gotta check my
Right. Yeah,
email
actually,
again. Does that ring a bell?
it's a bad product name, but it is literally called CoLive, and that is the product name.
Okay.
And the idea is that you pay a monthly fee depending on the region that you're in and the tier that the Selena building is, basically. So they have a couple different price points per region, and you can select any of their different places to live in through that price point. It's definitely an interesting product. A lot of their customers are the more backpacker type, more transient, maybe not there for super long. So I think they're trying to introduce the longer term person, especially because they do have all this co-working infrastructure already built. But I've stayed at a couple of Selenas. I don't know if you have. They're nice. I don't know if it's somewhere I would want to live. I personally even like having my own kitchen and stuff. So that right
Yeah.
there is a
Yeah, I've
deal
seen a
breaker for
bunch.
me.
Have you checked out the one in Medellin where you are? It's pretty cool just as a co-working space even.
Yeah, actually, my girlfriend was just saying that she visited and it was really nice and that I should definitely go. So, I just got here like 2 weeks ago, so I'm still exploring. But yeah, I definitely intend to check many more of them out. I know that it's a really incredible business and has grown incredibly as well. We are different than all three players in that I just mentioned in one specific vein, though, and that is that Selena, Landing, and Blue Ground, at least at the beginning, and still most of their business is this way today, that they are the owners or the lessors on every single one of their properties. That means that they are spending millions of dollars to set
Yeah,
up
that's
these
capital
listings,
intensive. Yeah.
super capital intensive. And it also means something else that I find specifically important for us consumers is that they're in two different businesses now. That means that they are the technological marketplace as well as the property manager. And when you're in two different businesses like that, especially at scale, it's so hard to come through with an experience that's an 11-star experience on either one of them. So, in my opinion, my humble, tiny little startup opinion, I think that they're trying to do too much, and because of that they're not able to do either one to their full capability. And so we're not we our thesis is, great property managers are great property managers. We shouldn't try and step on their toes. We should try and use technology to kind of fill the gaps where they're not so good, which is the marketing and the communications and the ability to make sure that we're curating the best ones all over the world. That's what nobody's been able to do so far, and I think what we're trying to kind of do for the entire world.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. Bitrefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries, including the USA, Canada, all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
And make sure that those places are the ones that we're listing and that we can stand behind the price, the value, the neighborhood, the livability, everything about every single one of our listings. In fact, I've either lived in our listings or would 100% live in there and have toured it. And that's basically all of our listings. So I'm personally making sure that all the utilities work and the Wi-Fi is as fast as they say it is and all that stuff. So, I think that what we want to do is curate and serve you the best listings all over the world to make it easy to live. And then there's a couple of these adjacent features that we're able to focus on because of the membership model, because we're focusing on just extended stays. three specific ones that I think are really exciting. The first is we have these really thorough city guides. So whenever I go to a new place, I'm keeping track of where to work, what to eat, what to visit, how to get there, what phrases to use, how to
Hmm.
get cash in the right places,
Hmm.
all the things that you would need to know to kind of set yourself up to live somewhere. We're putting into a guide. There's even an interactive map that'll give you a tour of different neighborhoods. So we're doing a lot on that front to help you understand the city better. To
Cool.
go even further on
By
that,
the
the
way,
second one
can I
there,
just shout
yeah,
out mylatinlife.com, 100 plus city guides, nearly every city in Latin America. Go
heck
check
yeah.
that out, guys. But yeah, keep going. By the way, I love how polished your answers are. Like you're like ready for like the pitch competition to, for like YC or something. But
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
continue.
Yeah, so the second one here is the to go even further on that. The second one here is we hire experts in each city that are just locals to basically be on standby to answer any of your questions. So it's like having a best friend in every city in the world, wherever you go, that has all the questions to all of the things that you want to know. That is kind of uh, the introductory wedge that we're going to use into forming the third really exceptional part of this, which is the global community. Eventually, once we kind of reach more scale, we'll have a global community of members that lives within these Orca destinations that will be run locally by these city experts. So the city experts will host events on weekends and make sure that you're aware of all the different things happening and make sure that whether it be going to get coffee in Colombia or whether it's going to the beach in LA, whatever it is, you're having an authentic local experience alongside all these other Orca members that
Mhm.
you have the opportunity to meet. So that's kind of the last key that we're going to unlock. And I'm really excited to unlock that piece because I think that'll really start to differentiate us from any other product out there.
Mhm. So what cities are you in now?
Oh man, so we're already in a bunch of US cities, including New York, LA, San Francisco. We're in a couple Latin American cities, including Tulum, Playa del Carmen. I'm here launching Medellin right now. We're a little bit in Europe, where my co-founder is launching all our European cities right now. So we've launched Stockholm. We've launched Berlin is coming in the next couple of weeks, and London hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And on top of that, we're launching 2 to 3 cities every month. And like I mentioned, some of them are member directed places that our members are already telling us, like, hey, I really want to go here.
Hmm.
Some of them are kind of hotspots where we know people already have these long term leases that would want to kind of escape the city a little bit. So we're bringing in the flexible option. And the mix of the two has been really good for us because they kind of intertwine with each other. The people that typically would go to Tulum maybe want to try going to LA for a month, and the people that are living in LA maybe want to go to Playa del Carmen for a month. So
Mm.
they've kind of piggybacked off each other in that way.
Do you think anyone would maybe do the majority of the year in LA and then do, I don't know, 3 4 months in Mexico, and
Yeah.
they're booking their LA stuff through you?
Yeah. I think actually that will be the most common use case maybe in 10 years. The way that this scales to where a family of four is using it as part of their everyday is exactly what you just said, where they're living 10 or 11 months out of the year in one place. Maybe they're spending a month wherever their parents are and a month in some educational tour of Europe or something. Like it could be absolutely anything. You could introduce your kids to multiple different places.
Dude,
There's
how
all these
crazy is that?
opportunities.
How crazy is it where we're going with this remote work stuff? It's like we
Yeah.
used to own houses. Then it's like at least have a 12-month lease, and it's like, no, you don't even need a lease. Just use
Well,
this.
like if you think about
You
it,
know what I mean? Just month to
why does the
month it,
lease even
baby.
exist? To be totally
It's
honest,
true.
the
It's true. It's
way
an outdated concept.
right, it's an outdated piece of contract work that really works for landlords, right? And the reason that it hasn't been disrupted ever is because we as renters have absolutely zero leverage. But now the fact that we can get up and work from somewhere else and we're not pinned down to San Francisco is like, oh, we'll just leave. And all of a sudden the property managers are like, oh, shoot. we got to figure this out. We got to figure out how to like add value in a way that nobody else is now. And
So
so
let
this,
me ask you this then.
yeah,
Is there a way to maybe lock in a rate? Because what if I know I want to keep spending
yeah,
time in LA every year and I'm like, well,
yeah.
this guy's just going to jack it up 30% a year on me if I'm doing it month to month.
Yeah, totally. So the first thing is we have like insanely deep pricing control. I'm not going to say it's total and absolute, but the fact is that if we don't agree with the price that the property manager is trying to list it at, we just won't list it. The fact is that we will stand behind 100% of the listings and 100% of the prices that we have on there. Even the places like in New York that are 3,400 are totally worth it compared to everything else that's 3,400 in New York.
3,400 sounds
And
pretty good for New York, to be honest.
it is pretty good. And everything there honestly starts at 3, 4K anyway. Having a studio with a rooftop, included breakfast, in a nice neighborhood, it totally makes sense. So once you experience Orca and you start to realize, oh, the standard is high and I can comfortably live at any of these places without having to blink twice, that introduces housing as a commodity almost. And now it becomes a lot more about your experiences and what you want to do and what you're following around the world. And that's where this idea of following your happiness comes from, is like, hey, if the housing becomes a commodity and we don't really care as long as it's great for our setup, then it becomes about the place and it
Hmm.
becomes about the people.
Do you have
And
any thoughts on people's stuff and people just having so much stuff and thought of a way to accommodate people that have a hard time being minimalist?
yeah, I think that as soon as you start to live out of a suitcase or two, you realize how little things you actually need.
I
You know what
know,
I
I
mean?
get it, bro. I've been doing it a long time, but you gotta.
Yeah.
It's a tough sell to people. I
Yeah.
feel.
Oh, I am in no rush to sell to people.
Right.
I tell people
Sell
all the
to the
time
converted.
now. Right, exactly. I'm in no rush because I tell people all the time now that I'm on a 100-year journey. I am not going to change the consumer behavior of renting overnight. It's just not going to happen. Right now, I'm using you and me as a spearhead, these early adopters that have figured it out already and see
Hmm.
the value in that flexibility. Those are the people that I want to cater to because there's nothing catering to them right now. Eventually, we'll get to a point where everybody just, it makes sense to live on Orca. And I think that
Live on
having
Orca.
things, yeah, I think like having things will be pretty overrated unless you're a homeowner and you can store those things. And even then, home ownership, I think, is going to like, you're going to see homes decrease in size and all these things that are going to imply that people are more flexible just in the way that the infrastructure is built.
Hmm. Hmm. Tell me more about the long term vision.
Yeah. So we'll get to a point eventually where it makes way more sense to live on Orca than it does to rent anywhere else. We might be 10 to 15% more expensive than a long term 12-month rental. But that
That's
rental
nothing
is
from
right.
if that's the
eh,
if it's only 10-15%, that's totally chill.
Right. And I think that's the difference that we're
The
talking
problem
about.
is what pisses us off is when with Airbnb it's double or even triple,
Right.
and that's like the
That's
baseline.
because
You know what I mean?
that's because the baseline of how Airbnb started was for vacations. And when you look at the hotel market, you're talking about like $100, $200 a night not being a crazy price for a lot of places. But if you look at the same market and look at the long-term rentals, you're talking about like $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month being the normal kind of average rate for the same type of location. So when you get all these places that are initially there to compete with hotels and pricing themselves similarly to hotels, you kind of you and I are squeezing ourselves into this platform, trying to create our own use case, saying, "Hey, it sucks for our use case," but they're sitting on the other side of the table saying, "Hey, you're a tiny fraction of our users. We don't really care about you. We're made for vacations." So
Right.
we're flipping that on its
Yeah.
head, where it's just made for longer term. And once you introduce that, then you start to introduce the possibility of playing against the 12-month lease and not just the hotel market.
Okay. And do you think when someone does Orca Pass, they'd come to you for every single month of the year, or do you think maybe they'd have it as a tool in their tool belt, and they'd also be looking at Airbnb and be like, oh, actually, I kind of found a better deal in Airbnb anyway, or maybe like I
Yeah,
know a buddy this month type of thing, or I guess like
right.
maybe part of your thing is to is you have to make sure that they're using your platform.
Well, yes and no. The great thing about the membership model is that we are 100% aligned with you. That means we're not looking for you to make more bookings. We don't make money on the number of bookings that you make. We make money having you part of our community and seeing the value in that. So as long as you're using it, even for a couple months out of the year, I think for now, using it as a tool makes sense. We will absolutely get to a point where either you are a homeowner or you are living on Orca, and those are the two logical senses. Like
I
that
love
is
it.
the future that we'll live in.
I love it. Okay, probably a
And
good
honestly,
time. I waited till we're 30 something minutes in, but what is Orca? What's the name, man? We gotta. I, I'm sure you have a very good response to this. What is Orca?
yeah, so it's kind of funny actually. It started as a project name. It started with my friend saying, "Oh, if you don't know what to call it, you should just name it after a whale because that's what you want to be. You want to be a whale of a company." And I was like, "All right, if I'm gonna name it after a whale, I'm gonna name it after the killer whale." So I just called it Project Orca for the first couple of months that I was working on it. Turns out that orcas are the only other entire species of mammal besides human that have no predictable migration pattern. They follow the good food around the world, they follow the nice weather, they kind of do whatever they want to do and live wherever they want to live. And
It's
they
like
can go yeah,
a
it's the
nomadic
only
whale.
other nomadic mammal. It literally is. So there's a very common bond between us and orcas in that sense, and it kind of exemplifies what we want to create in the world. So it was a
And
perfect name.
so, and an orca whale, by the way, is the Free Willy whale.
That's right. Yeah, the killer whale or shamu or
Killer whale.
whatever your
It's the
association is.
killer
Yeah,
whale. Killer whale is an orca whale. It's the same thing.
yeah, same thing.
Okay, I got to brush up on my whales. Interesting. Okay, Orca Pass.
Yeah, check us out. We're at OrcaPass on every social platform. That's OrcaPass. And it's also orcapass.com. And if you're listening to this, I have a special little announcement for everybody. We're creating a discount code for all of you listeners. If you type in My Latin Life at checkout, you will get a special little discount at the end.
Yes, I was hoping for that. I was hoping for that because I saw it in the product hunt. I saw that you guys were offering a pass in the product hunt. I was like, I gotta talk to Dayvin about getting my own little pass, and
Yeah,
you were thinking
we're gonna
ahead.
offer something even better actually. So back then we were offering a discount on the pass itself. What we're offering to your listeners is actually $100 off of rent wherever they want to live. So sign up for Orca wherever you want to rent, $100 off on me.
Sick. I like how you said on you, like on Dayvin.
It is on me.
Awesome. So you're in Medellin now. Hey everybody, hey everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America, and Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information. What does it take to launch a city? Do
Yeah.
you try to get to a certain threshold of units?
Great question. So we're trying to have this delicate balance of both depth and breadth, right? We want to be in enough places and enough destinations to where the network becomes valuable for somebody like you or I. But we also want to have enough options within those places to where we're not, keeping anybody out on the edges waiting for their own option. So what we do, at least to launch a new city, is we'll look for a property partner, a real estate partner that is already managing, call it 20 or 30 units. And
Mm.
so the way that we do this is actually really intense. We scrape 1,000 listings from various websites. We look for the property managers that have the best overall ratings, between 10 and 20 units. We'll narrow down on which property managers we want to work with. We'll find the best one or two or three. We'll go tour all of their units, figure out which ones are the best, and make the deal with the best one that we find. And so when we launch a new place, it's just the absolute best, 3, 4, 5 units that we could find out of all 1,000 or more that we scraped.
Wow.
There's some instances like in New York where we only have one listing up, but that one listing actually represents 18 units. There's 18 of those units. So almost never are we getting an instance where your requested unit is not available, or we're not able to fill you into a very similar unit with the same property manager.
Sweet. And it's all fully furnished, obviously.
100% furnished, utilities included. Everything is move-in ready for remote work. I am personally going there to tour to make sure all the utilities work and the Wi-Fi is ready and all the stuff that you would make sure of the first day you get there, just to do all that headache work for you.
Hmm.
So we're taking up all the upfront kind of headaches of it all, streamlining the whole process and making it really easy for you to move in.
Very cool. And which destinations are people requesting the most? You said that you're kind of tuning the demand based on what your members are asking for. What are they asking
Yeah.
for? What are some of the top requests?
Yeah, in the last couple days, I've seen a number of requests for Dubai, for Paris, and we got even more demand for San Francisco, actually, which is pretty crazy to me. But there seems to be everlasting demand for this type of product and for so many different types of people and niches. So I'm glad that we're able to provide for everybody. And like I said, if we're not already in the destination that you want to be in, just DM me on wherever, and I'll make sure that we launch wherever you want to go.
That's awesome. What about Latin America? What do you think? So you're doing Playa del Carmen, Tulum. You're working on Medellin.
Yeah.
What are some of the ones in Latin America that seem to pop up?
Yeah. Working on Mexico City, working on Sao Paulo, working on Buenos Aires. A couple of these more nomadic hotspots, we find that in South America, there's very specific cities where people really want to go for a month or two, where they don't want to pay Airbnb prices and they're not exactly a local. So we're coming in right in between where I'm going there and doing all the homework for them. It's not outrageous because it's not increasing prices the same way Airbnb does. And it still really integrates them into the society, giving everybody economic benefit and whatnot. So total win-win-win. And I think that all the cities that we're launching in have been really accepting of us as a product, and even the communities have been great. So we're really excited to keep expanding. And there are a number of Latin American cities that are on my list, including, Lima's next on my list also. There's so many cities that are on my list that we have yet to hit, but you can definitely bet that we'll be in all of them eventually.
I mean, it sounds like a very rapid expansion.
Yeah, we initially thought that it was going to take 3 to 4 weeks per person to launch a new destination. And that's what me and my co-founder are doing. So I'm launching all these South American destinations, and my co-founder is launching a bunch of European destinations right now. And we actually just had a member who helped us launch Istanbul, which decreased our time and cost by 90%. And so we're starting to realize that if we can start to launch new places with our members, then it's a win-win-win because they get the place of their dreams that's kind of optimized for exactly their criteria. We get to launch a new destination, and the property manager starts off in a really good relationship with us. So we're definitely more tuning into the members and where people want to go, and curating for that.
That's awesome. Lots of founders want to go to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and they love to do like a month just to dedicate to fundraising or shaking hands or like an intense networking period, but they don't want to get a lease or they can't get a lease. And with a hotel, you're just going to get crushed on,
Exactly.
like you go on Airbnb and it's probably absurd. It's probably like 7 grand minimum or something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like,
yeah,
I feel like
100%.
low key, the US could actually be a really big market.
Yeah, so it's funny. We tested this idea first in Mexico. So at first it was just Playa del Carmen and Tulum, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this sounds incredible. we would really love to go to Playa del Carmen, Tulum. It's within our budget. We can do it all, whatever. But we've got this 12-month lease in LA or in SF or in New York. And I can't let that go. And I can't pay twice. And it's hard to sublet. All these problems arise with that. And that's actually what started us down the path of thinking, from a first principles approach, what's the 12-month lease for? Like, what's the point of the 12-month lease? And it turns out, yeah, there really isn't a point other than it works for landlords really well. And that's when we started kind of changing our communication towards, hey, this is not just about renting in a place for a month or two at a time. This is about living more flexibly, replacing your 12-month lease altogether, and being able to have that flexibility within our network of living anywhere. So that's where all this came from.
Go into detail, though, about why the 12-month lease is an outdated concept, because it's probably worth repeating or just hearing, like, what are the downsides about this? Because we're on the digital nomad ends of things, we're probably like big proponents of, ditching the lease. But yeah, break this down. Break this down. Why
Yeah.
leases are just such a weird concept.
Yeah. They work for everybody except for the consumer. And it's that type of concept that really existed and was perpetuated, for 50 years of business in the last 50 to 70 years, some time frame. How do I answer this? Yeah, so let me jump back actually.
I mean, you have the deposit, the 1-month
Yeah,
deposit, you have
that's
the
exactly
12-month lease, you have
yeah,
the renewals kind of weird,
yeah.
all these conditions.
Yeah, so let me just compare for you two different experiences. This will really help bake it in. The 12-month lease starts with, okay, learning a neighborhood, finding an agent, maybe touring 5, 10 different units, finding the right one in the right price range where the utilities look pretty good, but there's no real reviews. You don't know what you're getting. I moved into a place that had a beehive in my bathroom vent, and like nightmares like that. And then you have moving, you have the cost of furnishing, you have setting up utilities every time from scratch.
Yeah, it's true.
All of these things, everything from A to Z is a headache. The entire process sucks. I actually saw a statistic not too long ago that said that moving is the most stressful things that we as humans do. And that is crazy to me. In the age where we're
That's
thinking
interesting.
about rocket travel, that moving is the most stressful thing we do.
Well, I mean,
So let's think
and
about
then
like
breaking
why.
it, and then breaking it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one
It's
experience,
like,
right?
hey, I want to leave. It's like, no, you have a 12-month lease.
Right. Oh, bad landlords, you get lawyers involved, you get shitty contracts that have vague terminology and all sorts of stuff that would never fly in like a 22nd century concept, right? So okay, that's one experience, right? You have zero visibility, zero trust, zero transparency. You're just kind of signing up for something and hoping for the best, and then paying a ridiculous amount of money to then like furnish it and fill it and have it work for you. Okay. And on top of that, if you ever decide you want to leave, you're screwed. You can't leave. You're like baked into this thing for an extended period of time, and there's no way out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one experience. And in the last 10 years, let's say, it's been the exact opposite end of the spectrum has started to evolve, where you have the Airbnb experience of look at a bunch of places, have reviews, click, 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 reserve. And that's the Airbnb experience. And what a revolution that was to housing. When I say flexible housing marketplace, you can't help but think about Airbnb because it's the only option, right? So those are two wildly different experiences, right? Airbnb is very, of course, given it's aimed at vacation renters, not long-term renters. It's a very nice experience. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have this horrid experience that's arduous and non-transparent, and you don't know what you're getting. We're right in the middle, right? Where we're building something that actually replaces that long-term product and has a lot of the same types of features, but we're building the experience as if it has this Airbnb type of product,
Mm-hmm.
where it's the best of both worlds. And then you bring in this like third factor of like, okay, there's also this co-living concept that started to popularize in the last couple of years. And the best part about co-living, if you ask anybody that's tried it, is the community aspect. So then how do you take the community aspect and merge it with the 12-month lease and merge it with this Airbnb experience? And that's when you get Orca.
Makes sense. What if, and this is just a thought experiment, but what if you didn't have to introduce a nomadic element to it and you just wanted to reinvent the 12-month lease? If I gave you that assignment, Dayvin, replace the 12-month lease with something
Yeah.
for the 21st century, what would you do?
Yeah, I would start where I started, to be quite honest. We have that intention. And the reason I say that is because if I tell you, okay, I'm going to replace the 12-month lease, who should I start with? The people that are already flexibly renting. Okay, well, who are those people? Well, they're remote workers that are already traveling between different places. Well, how do you get them to value something? Well, you create a giant network of different places that they can then travel between. And as you build that network, you also build a network of local trusted places that eventually anybody can use. It's kind of the same 20, 50-year playbook that like an Amazon used in 97, right? They started
I
with
was kind of
books.
thinking, like, what if Amazon just, or sorry, what if Airbnb basically introduced an Amazon Prime? Because that's kind of what you guys are, is like you're almost like an Amazon Prime
Yeah,
for
it's
like
interesting.
the
I've
booking.
I've talked to a bunch of executives at Airbnb. I've been fortunate enough to kind of just go back and forth with them, and I'll say that I'm pretty confident that we've got some time. They know that it's such a small percentage of their user base that they've got so many other things to do first. You know what I mean? And to be honest, they've got a lot of steps to execute on before they can actually think about a product like this, right? If
Really?
you're
You think they're not
Airbnb,
even working on it? That's crazy. With Selena
I know
having
it's on
had
their
it for
minds.
over a year.
I know it's on their minds. I don't think that they figured out what the product is yet. And because of that, there's a huge opportunity for a little tiny scrappy startup like me that can be super iterative and move 1,000 times a month to come in and eat up a lot of that market before they can think about it.
Hmm. So do you think at the end of the day, the game is the ability to like dig up fresh listings, or is it more the software part of things, or where can someone win?
In terms of a business like ours, or
Yeah, yeah.
specifically, um, that's a great question. If you think about what Airbnb's moat is that they've got every listing under the sun practically, and they're really good experience, and they're very optimized for their use case, which is vacations. Right? They're really, really good at that one thing. Nobody's going to touch them on that. Right? On the oh shoot, totally just lost my train of thought. Give me one sec. Um,
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Airbnb is good at vacations, but they're not thinking about long term because it's too small of a portion of the overall market, even though it should be pretty big, my God. But
yeah, I mean they've definitely experienced a surge in their bookings that are over a month long. Revenue during the pandemic peaked
yeah, they
out at
introduced a
around.
couple things, didn't they? They introduced some kind of monthly filter thing recently.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen it?
Not overly.
Yeah. I would love to hear what you think on it. My opinion is that it's really pretty. It looks really nice, but I don't know how it adds a ton of value for our type of use case. So I could go on and on about like specific things, but I don't want to like dig too much. The point that I was basically trying to make there was that, yeah, Airbnb is really good at vacations. Nobody's going to touch them on that. But
Hmm.
that means that there's an opportunity to kind of unbundle for everything else. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that.
No, it definitely makes sense. Um, is there any plan to do anything? I feel like the two big maybe anxiety areas would be people with stuff, and then people with just, I guess, basically just making the dates line up between different Orca bookings in different cities.
Yeah,
Whereas like Airbnb really has a lot of volume, so like you're always going to be able to get something to match up when
right,
you go from London to Paris or whatever. But when there's
right.
less bookings, like you really do need to maybe pray a bit that things line up, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think one way we're trying to combat that is firstly by telling all of our members, hey, if you want to book something, try to book 2 months in advance because then practically everything is available. All of our listings are monthly bookings. None of them are, if they are taken for a year, there's usually other units that are the exact same that are not taken for a full year. So almost always there's going to be some availability if you're booking a couple months in advance. The second thing that we're going to try and do eventually is give people the opportunity to try and plan their year out or even try and plan 5 years out and lock in all of those bookings before anybody else can even think about it. That will give you the opportunity to make sure you get all your favorite places and all of your favorite destinations without having to do all the headaches of making sure that you get it every time.
Hmm. Cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea, I'm just thinking kind of futuristically, the idea that housing basically just becomes a monthly software subscription with a whole bunch of options is pretty crazy. It's pretty cool. I can see
Yeah,
this. I can see this working not only for nomads, but maybe even for retirees as well. And it's
yeah,
just, it's pretty cool. It's just pretty cool. Um, yeah, it's funny. You don't control like the flights though, because that's the thing. Because
right.
it would almost be cool if you had something called like the under 2,000 a month club or the under 1,000 a month club. Under 1,000 a
Right.
month would be crazy because that's kind of a lot harder to do in 2023. But let's just say you
Yeah.
had all these destinations and you could get 12 different monthly rentals under $1,000 for medium. Maybe it's Nicaragua, it's southern Mexico, it's whatever,
Yeah.
and be like sick. So I could basically lock in a whole year of destinations under $1,000 a month, or even just to stay within a destination. Like if you just find a way to lock in the rent for a low price, like it'd be
Yeah.
cool. This is random. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah.
But
No, we're
I had
totally
I
on the
had I
same
had this
page.
idea. I almost had this idea where it was like, why do people buy gas as if it's a one-off purchase every time? Where if you have a car, you're going to be buying gas like for the next
Yeah.
5 years or however long you own that car. So why aren't you on like a subscription plan that maybe gets you a discount if you
Yeah.
commit
There's a
to
couple of those
to
now.
purchasing
There,
a certain amount of gas per year?
yeah, there's a couple gas subscription plans that will
Is
basically
there
bring a tanker to your house and fill up your tank for you, or like to your work or whatever.
something like that? And so there
Um,
are these things that we always consume. Maybe it's milk, maybe it's gas,
yeah.
maybe it's housing, and you're going to
Here's one
consume
thing.
housing. So if you can get on like a almost like a points plan for housing, and be stacking, the equivalent of air miles, but for housing, and have like
Right.
a
Here's
subscription.
one
It's
big
crazy.
difference between those types of products is that housing comes with a lot of predictability, right? I can tell you that what I'm going to do in 2 months. I can probably tell you what I'm going to do in 4 or 6 months also. It's going to be really hard to guess what dates I need gas, or really hard to guess which times I'll need milk, right? Those are things that come baked in with a lot less predictability. So when you're talking about a membership where that model makes sense, it makes sense in these types of businesses where there is a lot of predictability, and that the ecosystem model makes a lot of sense. Even Apple's services business has kind of built has been built on the back of their ecosystem, making it a
Hmm.
much more compelling services business, right? The ecosystem enables the membership model a lot more. So that's what we're trying to do really, is like create this ecosystem where people can just live and not have to worry about all of the housing headaches that come along with that.
Hmm. So what's the next iteration and the final iteration of basically housing as a service in
Yeah,
this subscription model?
I think the next iteration is helping normal 12-month renters and 12-month landlords understand that part of their building, if not a lot of their building, should be committed to having this flexible furnished option. And the same thing for renters. I think that helping them understand, like, oh, the flexible furnished option makes way more sense than renting and refurnishing every single time and dealing with all that. Um, that's kind of the second step. I think the third step, where that eventually leads to, is a future where consumers are not the purchasers of furniture anymore. And now it's property managers that
Oh
are buying
shit.
furniture
That's
in bulk,
crazy.
right? And we don't need to worry about that. And all of these things are kind of on lease, if you want to think about it like that, where we don't need to own a couch. There's no point in owning a couch unless you own that home, right? And so a lot of these things will start to click. A lot of them will start to align. The matter of fact is, like, it's a much better service than the 12-month lease. And no matter which way you slice that, it means we'll eventually break into the mainstream.
Hmm. And when you try to pitch this to landlords, are you pitching they convert just a portion of their building to try it out? And basically, your kind of thing is you're saying, look, we're going to pay you 10, 15% more, and you're just going to kind of maintain it as a furnished thing. How does it look different from the landlord's perspective in terms of
Yeah,
their trade off?
great question. Uh, in step two, we'll get to the point where we have to start convincing landlords to do this. But for now, we're already working with the property managers who have are also on the early end of this adoption cycle, where they realize, oh, if I take all of my units, furnish them, I can charge 20% more or whatever it is. Right? That insight unlocks something for them that then they realize, oh, Airbnb is not a suitable platform. And so as soon as I come in, actually, it's a very easy sale. I say two things. I say, one, we're going to help you increase your occupancy, right? If it goes from 80% to 90%, that's a no brainer for them. And I can come in and bring these really high quality tenants that we've pre vetted, that are paying members. We're not taking fees. We're super aligned with everybody. The second thing is that they no longer have to do the marketing or the communication, right? All of the
Right.
marketing communication is managed by us, which makes their job solely focused on property management, which is ultimately what they're better at, right? They know that they're great property managers and they're not trained
Hmm.
marketers. So there should be no reason that they should be doing all the marketing and distribution stuff for their properties.
Right. So for them, it's
So
almost like the next iteration is like tenant as a service, almost.
for almost,
Yeah.
almost exactly.
Cool. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Like all these people every year, like buying the couch, buying the TV, moving it from one place to another, going to
Right.
Home Depot, coming back. Like it's like totally pointless for the
Yeah,
most
it doesn't
part.
make any
And we're
sense. And it's
and we're
so inefficient
yeah.
economically.
No, I totally get it. It's pretty cool. And you have the desire to take it to that kind of level and see what this thing can turn into in 5, 10 years.
Oh, 100%. I tell people all the time now that we're on a 100-year journey. Like I said, I have no intention of changing everybody's mind immediately. I know that it's going to take a long time, but by the time that the mainstream is ready for a product like this, we are going to be the front runner. 100%.
Hmm. Does anyone ask you like how much they should budget in terms of for the year or for the month if they want to
Yeah, we've
live the
kind of
Orca lifestyle?
we've kind of honed in on this price range where it doesn't really matter if you're making 50K a year or 500K a year. You don't want to spend more than 2,500. So that's really where we typically try to cap it at, unless there's, certain exceptions in cities like New York or San Francisco that are just outrageous. But the minimum that we try to find in quality wise is around 1,000, 1,200, maybe 1,500 in some cases. So our target price point for all of our rentals is between 1,500 and 2,500, and there's a little bit outside of that, but that's where our target is.
That sounds like Super good, right? I thought I was looking at, maybe I'm out of the game, but I was looking at statistics and the average rent is 2,500 now almost.
Oh yeah, yeah. Average rent is insane, but when you start to introduce places like Tulum, Mexico, or Playa del Carmen, our
Gotcha.
place in Playa del Carmen is a four-star apartment style hotel with a rooftop pool and included breakfast. And when I tell you this place is incredible to live in, I lived there for 2 months myself and loved it. It
In
was
Playa.
insane. In
How much is
Playa,
it?
5 minute walk from the beach. It goes
Yeah.
for between $1,250 and $1,500 a month
With breakfast.
with breakfast. It's great.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
It's the best deal. That's why we listed it.
I like it. I like it. So what's your game plan? So Medellin now, then Peru.
Yep.
Um how you enjoying Latin America Latin America so far? Is that the deal? You're going to keep opening more locations here?
Yeah, definitely. I this is my first time really getting to explore Latin America, and wow, I am loving every aspect of it. Like I mentioned, I'm obsessed with culture. I love experiencing new cultures and whatnot. And so to be super integrated and exposed to new stuff that I've never seen before, thought about before, is just super exciting to me. There's so many different parts about Latin American culture that are actually very familiar to me because Indian culture has a lot of overlaps, and then there's a lot of new things to me. It's so exciting and exhilarating to be so integrated in a place like this, and I'm loving every minute of it. I should also disclaimer: my girlfriend is Peruvian, so she's been able to help me with a lot of my Spanish that I'm still brushing up on. Um, but that's been a good way to navigate as well.
Good, good. Sounds like you've been LatAm pilled, as we call it.
Exactly.
That's cool. I mean, I think like Latin America as a real estate opportunity just makes so much sense because I think the this maybe I'm not sure I have numbers to back this up, but maybe the spread is bigger in Latin America between the the traditional 12-month lease and the Airbnb price, where the 12
Yeah,
month
totally.
lease is, X, maybe in Playa it's $1,000 a month, something like that. And then on Airbnb it's 2,000, right? So it's double. And
Insane spreads.
the
And
spreads
that's
are
where you see a
crazy.
lot of the locals start to complain is
Hmm.
when there's insane spreads and people are still paying the high prices because then that drags every other price up. So what we try to do is like we really limit supply and demand by making sure that the places that we have are at the best prices at the best rates possible. And like I said, if a price changes or we can't stand behind it, we just won't list it. It's as simple as that. So we are not allowing people to price it at that quite a spread, and we're making sure that we're more reasonably priced. I mean, it might not be as similarly priced as a 12-month unfurnished lease for a local, but
Hmm.
it's definitely going to be way less, significantly hundreds of dollars less than any Airbnb rental will.
No, I like it. And David, I can tell you, like, from my perspective, I enjoy how you have Latin America and you also have the US and you have, top hotspots in the US because, for ambitious people or digital nomads that also don't just want to be fully on the beach and chilling but still want to be in the game a little bit, I
Right.
can use your service. I can spend a month in San Francisco or LA or New York or Boston and kind of be in the game a bit, maybe catch up with old buddies and um, have like a higher pace in this, in the summer or in like
100%.
in an important period of the year, and then maybe in the winter I can go chill in Tulum, whatever. So
Exactly.
it's cool that it gives me a bit of both.
Yeah, that's exactly the idea is the only way that we could really replace the 12-month lease is by going to places where you already consider home and making sure that we have great options there that are just as good as the rest of the network. So if we can get you in there, then you're in. Then you're in the network and you can go anywhere. And you can go from New York in the spring to Tulum in the winter to Tokyo in the fall. Like you can do whatever you want at that point. And we had to start with home, right?
Hmm.
That's where the insight really came from.
And I think also if you can vet it in places where I don't know what I'm doing, I think that's awesome. I
Yep.
think like I'm totally comfortable with Latin America. I realize a lot of my buddies aren't in terms of
Yeah.
just booking a good Airbnb. But if I went to Dubai or Turkey, I might not know the best neighborhood to stay in Istanbul. So if you guys help with
Right.
that too,
Exactly.
good.
And the guides help with that. The city expert helps with that.
Yeah,
There's all these things that make it really easy and simple and attractive to go from city to city with peace of mind.
sick. I love it. David, so let's start to wrap it up. Um, Tell us again about the incredible offer that you have for the audience.
Yes.
What are we
Yeah.
offering again? What's the promo code?
So if you go to orcapass.com and you check out for your Orca Pass, type in the code MyLatinLife and it will apply a code that won't actually get you anything immediately off. But as soon as you make your first rental, we will give you $100 off that rental. So wherever you want to rent, anywhere in the world, $100 on me. Just let me know where that is.
Sick. I love it. Anywhere else that you want to direct the audience in terms of getting in touch with you directly, maybe?
Yeah, I'm at Devan Sood everywhere. DEVANSOOD. If you want to put it in the show notes, that'd be great. And Orca Pass is at Orca Pass everywhere. So at ORCAPASS and orcapass.com. So definitely follow along. I'm posting a lot of the personal entrepreneurship journey on Twitter as well. So that's probably the best place to follow me.
Sick. You've been enjoying Twitter so far?
Yeah, there's such a crazy value for technical people on Twitter. I don't exactly know why, but tech Twitter is just an insane bubble, and I've been able to get a crazy amount of value from outsized amount of value from Twitter. So I'm a big fan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Or should I call it X? I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna date ourselves with the podcast, but
Yeah, exactly.
no, dude, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about this novel concept that I think has a good shot of really disrupting the real estate market. Thank you also for explaining that the orca is the most nomadic non-human mammal. Am I saying that right?
That's right. It's the
Okay,
only non-human mammal species.
that's nomadic.
That's nomadic. That's
Something
right.
like that. I might have to. Anyway, so again, our guest today was Dayvin Sood of Orca, orcapass.com. Use the code MyLatinLife for a discount. Guys, go and make an account. Definitely sounds like an awesome tool for the tool belt as a digital nomad. Again, this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Thanks everyone for listening.